Okay, I have arrived at the parking lot of my destination, and there are cars here. Matter of fact, several dozen cars, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and do this hike and hope for the best as far as getting some photos. It is about 1:15 in the afternoon. I know, not the best not the best time of the day to take photographs, but what I got going for me is winter months, so the sun is at a considerably lower angle, and I just saw my subject up over here, and there's a very dramatic shadow coming off of it right now because of the sun, but there are a lot of people here, so I will be sharing this trail with many folks. So I hope I wasn't rambling on too bad this morning about why I was here, what I'm doing, but I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're out taking pictures, sometimes you just have to take what you're given, even if it's not what you're expecting, even if it's not what you're planned for. I'm going on a hike and I really don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if there's going to be a good opportunity, and I don't even know that if the subject I take is going to end up what I photograph. And without further ado, I should probably tell you where I'm going. I'm actually going up to Delicate Arch inside of Arches National Park. So I'm not going to bore you anymore with this. So when I get closer to the arch, I will bring you back. Hold on just a minute. Okay, so I've been walking for about a half an hour. This is a 3-mile round trip, so in other words, 1.5 miles up, 1.5 miles back, and somewhere at the top of this is my destination. As you can see, there's a lot of people coming off of this thing, still a few going up, so we will see what happens. See you at the top. All right, so walked up this trail with more exposure than I remember, from that parking lot down there where you can see the cars blinking in the sun, all the way to here. That is Delicate Arch. Not that many people up here, but the bad part is there's a line for selfies. The shadow that I had envisioned is actually there, but how do you incorporate people in here taking selfies? I don't know. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I will. It's a long hike. I think I read it was 1.5 miles each way. I'm thinking it was 3 miles one way, or it was just uphill both ways kind of thing. But nonetheless, this is Delicate Arch, where they're actually take any pictures is yet to be seen. Very beautiful, but I am not going to take the camera out of the backpack. It's just not going to happen. People are continuing to pour up here, enjoying the arch in their own way, which I'm all about, but I'm just not going to be able to do any photography here. A woman came in with, excuse me, the whole lot of children, and started taking pictures literally right next to me. And again, they're enjoying the arch in their own way, Arches National Park in their own way, but it just wasn't what I was looking for today. Not only that, but quite honestly, I'm not as young as I used to be. I've actually done this hike before. It's been probably about 20 years, and I am not in the physical condition anymore to do this. I barely made it up here, and this is incredibly exposed. And people are still coming out of the woodwork up this trail, so I'm gonna head down head out of the park and see if there's something I can't find that's interesting that I can photograph. And we'll see. So again, not what I not what I was hoping for. This is what I came for, not what I was hoping for. But now let's go see if I can find something that I wasn't expecting that will be just as good, if not better. So we'll see you in the car. All right, you're approaching probably the halfway point or so. There's some really big ravens around here. But I gotta be honest with you, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm seeing some people walking up here. It's only a couple of hours till sundown. And I've seen families with little children. I've seen a few older folks who were having a little bit of trouble. I mean, I had trouble up here. And I'm used to walking this kind of stuff. So I can honestly say, I can understand why people get lost and need help at times like this. Because boy, this is not an easy hike. But nonetheless beautiful. And suddenly, when what you want to photograph doesn't work out, what you weren't expecting to photograph begins to come in focus. Yesterday, I didn't hike this trail because it was literally a flat blue sky. I mean, it was beautiful, but just no clouds. And today, as you can see behind me, there are clouds, and they're starting to look very interesting. And now I'm looking for a subject. Let's see what we can find. Well, everyone, I hate to say it, but today is just not my day. The clouds that I saw on Delicate Arch Trail pretty much have gone over there. Not only that, but you can see there's a few contrails mixed in. And I don't like skies with contrails on them. And this just isn't my day. It's just not a good day for photography. And I mean, I'm in Arches National Park. And you're probably thinking, Chris, how on earth could you not take a photograph there? And you're right, it's impossible not to take a photograph here, but it's also impossible not to take a photograph that a million other people have taken. And I just don't want to do that. I want unique.
All right, everybody, it is Chris again, and I am back with a little bit of a postlude, if that's even a word, about the video you just saw. Now, I understand what I'm doing here might be a little bit crude, but for many, many years, I stood in front of people talking about photography. And this was many, many years ago, but literally at least one, if not two or more days a week, I stood up in front of people that I was teaching consumer education classes at the camera stores that I work with, and I was actually very, very comfortable, and I think I was pretty darn good at educating people on how to use their cameras. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I am a little rusty because this is now we're into 2022, and that was the early 90s, so you can do the math on that one. But I still want to use my YouTube platform as a means of education and to kind of explain why I did things or why didn't I do things. And so we can use this as a platform for that. I would love one of these days to begin to teach face-to-face again. And but for now, this is the only way I know to kind of tell you what I was thinking and, like I said, what I did or what I did not do and explain that to you. And hopefully you can learn from what either my mistakes or simply from what I did or didn't do. So I hiked all the way up to Delicate Arch, which, according to the trail guide, was like a mile and a half up and a mile and a half back. It seemed like a lot further than that. But when I was approaching the parking lot for Delicate Arch, I never realized this before. It had been about over 20 years since I've made this hike, but you can actually see as you're approaching the parking lot the Delicate Arch from the road. And what caught my eye was this right here. See this shadow? I was like, okay, this is cool. I really like that. And that might be the shot that I'm looking for. And so I deemed that to try to get this dramatic shadow would probably be worth it. Now, my original vision was to take this image in black and white. And quite honestly, being I never took my camera out of the bag, you're probably wondering, well, how did you get this image? Well, I shot this image with my cell phone. So I was kind of texting back and forth with my wife and a couple of friends, and we were kind of joking about not seeing any arches in Arches National Park, and I kind of sit this one saying, hey, I finally found an arch. So this was actually taken more of as a joke than anything else. However, it's coming in very handy in this situation. So, like I said, I saw this shadow from a distance, and basically, if I had to say, I would going to probably crop something like this, eliminate all of this. I had my GFX 50R, probably would have used the 100 to 200 millimeter lens to get a pretty decent crop on it. But when I got up there, as you can see, there are people. Now, there are not a lot of people. I went to a view area, which is kind of down over here somewhere the day before, and there were literally, you could see dozens of people up here lining the rocks and everything else. And so I didn't make the hike that day. All things considered, there aren't really that many people at this location. But honestly, if you kind of zoom in, and let's say my crop would have been maybe something like this. This is what I probably would have shot. I have a person right there. There's one there. I'm not sure what that is. There's something over here. There's one there. Probably this person is taking this person's photo. And these two are probably waiting for these people to clear out so they can get in there. And there are actually people up over here. And where I was standing, there were people over here and actually people behind me. So there were probably close to 24 people. And as I sat there, the people just kept coming. This was getting late on in the afternoon. And it kind of astonished me how many people were walking up there that late, especially people with, honestly, children. There were people up there who had little tiny children. And in fact, when I got back to the parking lot, it was probably only 30 or 45 minutes before dark, and there were people unloading their families to try to get up to Delicate Arch to get their social media picture that they were here and, do the little peace sign and all that, which is cool. I honestly, you have the right to visit these places just as much as anybody else. Anybody does. And if you're there to take a photo for social media, good on you. I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad you're, exploring our country. As long as you're being respectful to the land, not polluting, not leaving your trash everywhere, and just being a nice person, quite honestly, please. And, you're welcome and you have as much right there to everybody else. But because of the fact of the people here and, the sky wasn't that great, never even got the camera out of the bag. And it's kind of funny because as I was going down, I was about probably 2/3 of the way to the parking lot. A group of young people actually saw my photo backpack and my tripod and actually stopped and said, wow, you probably got an amazing shot. And I told them, I said, I didn't even take it out of the bag. And the kid was like, why? And I was like, well, there's a lot of people up there. And he goes, well, it's a Tuesday. And I was like, I know, but there's still a lot of people up there. It's like, oh man. It's like, trust me, there's not a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people up there. And so quite honestly, it just wasn't going to work. And if you notice in the video, on my way back down, all of a sudden, things kind of change. Clouds start to appear that are much nicer, and I just like the overall look better, and I began to look for a composition. And let's see here. Let's zoom back out. Where's my arrow? And after doing some searching, this is the composition that I came up with. I rather like this image, and the reason is because this is not your typical Arches National Park photo. Quite honestly, it doesn't have an arch in it. right? And so that's something unusual. And so this is kind of what I was looking for. But here's the problem. This image was actually taken on my cell phone. After I got out my GFX 50, the widest angle lens I have is the 30 millimeter. And after trying to get my tripod set up and rearrange everything, this is the best I could come up with. And quite honestly, I like the cell phone picture a lot better. And the unfortunate part is this is obviously very low megapixel. It's a JPEG, can't do a whole lot with it. And so I fought and I pushed and I tried to get my tripod in the right position. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't, and I'm honestly, as a human being, I'm not that flexible. So I was shooting at an extreme angle, couldn't quite see what I was doing, and off my GFX 50, this is the only image I came up with. Now, if I would have gotten this on the GFX 50, I would have been thrilled. I would have been fantastically happy with that. But it just didn't work out. And that's why, in spite of the fact I was in Arches National Park, in spite of the fact that I was having a good time, I enjoyed my hike to Delicate Arch, it was a bit frustrating because I wasn't really getting a lot of images. But maybe I was, and I'll explain why in a moment. When I first arrived to Arches, it was literally the day before this was shot, it was a blank, featureless, deep blue sky. And most of the time, if you're taking landscape photos like this, you're not going to want that. I wasn't interested in taking traditional arch shots. I wanted something different. And so here I am. And what this is about is this is when I first got here. And you're probably thinking, Chris, there are clouds. Well, I had been there for a little while and a few things had moved in, but it's to kind of explain what I'm doing here. I wanted to show off the sky a little bit, but I was again texting my wife and a couple of friends of ours, and one of the it's another couple actually, and I told them where I was at, and she was like, "Oh, cool! Could you bring me back a rock?" And I was like, "Well, okay, let's see what rocks I can find to bring you home." And this is one that I saw, and this is one that I saw, and again, you can see there are clouds. But when I first got there, there really weren't that many clouds. And so instantly my mind went to trying to find alternate compositions because I did not want your traditional Arches National Park photo. I didn't want this. And honestly, there's a billion pictures out there like this. And if you're a photographer, quite honestly, probably not a bad idea to have these in your portfolio. Because if somebody says, hey, I want a picture of this arch in Arches National Park, you can say, hey, even if it's not the greatest picture in the world, you have it. So you are actually giving customers what they want. But this is what I started doing. Is one of the first things I noticed is the deep and dramatic shadows some of the rock formations were causing on other parts of the wall. So this is the shadow of a hoodoo, and obviously it's causing a shadow on this opposite rock wall. And instantly my mind went from the grand landscape to the more abstract, weird, less common images from Arches. Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you these images are good, because quite honestly, that's not up to me. It's not really up to the photographer their images are good. It's up to the people who buy them. Really, I mean, you might fall madly in love with an image, think it's your best picture you ever take, and yet people don't buy it or just kind of look at it and go, well, that's okay. So honestly, it's not up to me. But what I want you as a fellow photographer to do is think about what you were doing. If what you showed up to shoot is not working out, is there something else you can do? So I literally just started shooting more abstract and more shadowy landscapes. So here is, come on, there we go. And so here is another example of that. Now, is this a good photo? No idea. Sky is very, very dark. There's nothing in it. So yeah, there's my proof that there was no clouds in the sky. Would this be better if there's some clouds there? Probably. But what caught me was this shape of this shadow in this area here. So I literally park in a parking lot, get out my X-T3, my 100 to 400, and literally hand holding, yes, I had the image stabilizer turned on the lens, and I started just clicking away, and what I was looking for was the abstract the odd. Now, this image was actually taken after the Mesa Arch stuff. I was again a little bit frustrated leaving the park, and I saw this right here. And what I thought I saw was the sun shining through one of the little obscure arches that people don't really know about, that just may be on a cliff face that is hard to get to or you just can't see. But I thought I was seeing sunlight through an arch, but what I was seeing is literally just how the sun was playing with the other hoodoos and the other rock formations and casting shadows on this wall. So I literally flipped my car around, again, got out my XT3, my 100 to 400, handheld, with the image stabilizer on, and started taking pictures. So, and I just did literally a series of photos, different composition, and I was really, again, intrigued by the shadows. So I have light, I have shadows, and again, this is not your typical Arches National Park photos, but to me, it's just more interesting. And maybe more creative. Is it a good photo? That's up to you. I don't know if it's a good photo or not. But this is what I ended up shooting, and this is what I came away with that probably is, oops, sorry, you weren't supposed to see that yet. This is what I came away with that is the most interesting to me. Now, I just kind of gave you a preview of what I wanted to show you next, but I am going to share with you my favorite photo that I've ever taken in Arches National Park. And as you just saw, it's not an arch. So many years ago, I was in Arches National Park with my father. Maybe not the first time that I visited, but one of the first times I visited. My father was with me. He was obviously alive at the time. And had been photographing, and I honestly I probably could dig back through my files and find those images that I shot that day. But we were actually heading back into Moab for dinner. I think we were actually camping, but we were heading back in for dinner. And I looked over to my left and I saw the full moon rising up over the valley. Now, I literally drove my car into a ditch. And I mean, I wasn't necessarily blocking traffic, but I was not out of traffic, and people were slowing down to get around me. I quickly set up my Gitsu tripod. The longest lens I had at the time was a 500 millimeter f4 Nikkor, and I started shooting. Yes, this is a film image, and again, my nature stuff back in the day, I never used film over ISO 100, so this is either Velvia 50 or a Fujichrome or Ektachrome 100. Not sure which one. I'd have to actually go back and do some research and find out. But I shot this image. This image has got to be 20, 25 years old at this point. And so this is my favorite image that I've ever taken in Arches National Park, and it has nothing to do with an arch. So if you're curious, one of these days I'll probably do a video about this image itself, because exposing for a full moon is probably a very good subject to talk about. And there's probably a lot of people who want to know how I did this on film. And in the early days, this is when Photoshop was just coming online. I actually had this picture blown up, and a few people have seen it. I think I only have one print of this, and it's actually hanging in my kitchen. And I actually did field a few questions of, is this Photoshop? People assume that I put this image there, or this moon there. No, I did not. This is actually shot with a 500 millimeter lens on a piece of film. I did do some bracketing, so there are some other images available, but the moon turned out like that because of the lens I was shooting and how the film was exposed. This is not a Photoshop image. This is my favorite image that I've ever taken in Arches National Park. So for now, I am going to end here. We don't want this video to get too long. Honestly, I hope you got something out of this. My goal for YouTube is really a free platform, and I want to be able to teach people what I know and honestly what I'm learning about photography. So for now, my name is Chris Goss. My website will eventually be called Chris G Photography. not Chris Goss Photography. But do me a favor, like, view, and subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and help me build this channel into something wonderful. And thank you for watching.